Today, I'm going to do a complete walkthrough on how to use ElevenLabs and build conversational AI voice agents on their platform. This is going to be a complete walkthrough, so I'm going to go through everything that there is to building these agents on the platform. This is going to include all of the voice settings associated with ElevenLabs, how to deploy it, and the widget options that we have, as well as their workflows canvas tool, which allows us to connect multiple different agents all together. So by the end of this video, you're going to be an expert at using the ElevenLabs conversational AI platform, and you're going to be able to build some pretty awesome voice agents. And just to give you some more context, this right here is the ElevenLabs sort of main landing page. The conversational agents platform, we can see here, if you're familiar with ElevenLabs, you'll know that they are one of the best, if not the best platform for the actual AI voices themselves. And so this just really contributes to this platform sounding very realistic and the agents sounding quite nice. And you can see some information here about the types of agents that they have, some chat deployment that you can also do on ElevenLabs. We can see the multi-agent workflows, which I will do a run through as well in this video, where we can now start to connect multiple different prompts and multiple different agents together to build more complex workflows. One of the big benefits of ElevenLabs compared to some of the other platforms out there is its ability to be deployed in many different ways. So we can have it as a web widget, like you can see here. We can have it as a chat widget as well, but we can also have this deployed on a website as a standalone chat interface or as a little bubble in the corner. But once again, I'll cover all of that later in the video. So jumping right into it, this is ElevenLabs. Once again, if you've used ElevenLabs before, you might have used it for speech generation or looking at some of the voices. They've now just built their own conversational AI platform. So we can build our agents directly into their platform. So I'll go ahead and click new agent. I'm going to start from scratch. You're going to see blank agent, personal assistant, and business agent. Now these are just templates, so we don't have to start here. We'll just start with a blank agent, and I'm going to run through all of the settings required to get one of these agents up and running. So just give your agent a name and you're going to land on this main page right here. And I'm just going to go through some of the settings and some of the things that you can start to think about when building a voice agent here on ElevenLabs. So if you have built any voice agents before or any AI agents before that require prompting, a lot of the setup is going to be very similar to a lot of those other platforms. So the first settings that we have access to is all to do with languages. So a big benefit of ElevenLabs is that we have access to their multilingual models. So what we can do is just swap the languages. So we can set a default language of English or whatever language you'd like to choose. And then we can add additional languages as well. So if you're not familiar with ElevenLabs, they've got a lot of different speech models, and some of those speech models are more finely tuned for other languages. Multi-language model is going to assist in making that sort of communication a lot smoother. So this very simply is going to be the first thing that our agent says when we start to talk to it. So in this case, by default, it's just going to say, hello, how can I help you today? That's really all it's going to say right away. In some use cases, we might not want to have a first message, and we can just go ahead and delete this entirely. And it's not going to say anything right away. Otherwise, if we're building out something like an AI receptionist system, typically you would have some sort of a greeting message that when you called into the system, it would greet you and sort of prompt you to ask, what your issue is or if you have any questions. Then below this, we have our system prompt. So this is going to be our main instruction set for guiding the agent, determining its persona, as you can see here, really just giving it the entire instruction set on who are you, what is your goal, what are the types of inquiries that you're going to be expecting to receive, and how are we going to handle them. Now on ElevenLabs, you'll see that we can describe the desired agent, and we can actually use this sort of AI prompt generator to create the entire prompt for us. I've used it before. It actually works quite well and gives you a really good rough draft to work from. So I'll use this in a minute, but we can just describe the type of agent we're looking for, hit the generate button, and it's going to create us a nice prompt. Now, when you start to build more complex agents and you want to start to connect into appointment booking functions, or you want to start to talk to other applications, understanding what the current time is usually quite a big deal. And you can see here that we've got variables that we can add into our system prompt. And this could be the time or the time zone. All of that information, we actually have default variables that ElevenLabs has here that we can simply click on and get access to directly in our agent. So this is a pretty cool feature if you do need to get any of these values, and you will likely need them if you are going to be connecting into external tools like cal.com or Google Calendar, and you're going to be booking an appointment. You probably want to understand what the current time is and when they're looking to book for. You can see on the right side as well, they've got add time zone. So we can set this to a specific time zone if we'd like as well. And so this will just sort of help contribute to that timing once again. Scrolling down a bit, we've got the large language model. You'll see if we click on this, we've actually got access to quite a few different models, which is great. Not every platform has a bunch of models like this. So we've got access to the ElevenLabs model here with some open source OpenAI models. Typically, we do just use some of the quicker OpenAI models like GPT 4.1 mini. Otherwise, we do have access to a lot of the Google Gemini models, which is great to see. Some of these models can work quite well for voice agents, Anthropic models as well, and a custom LLM at the bottom here. Once again, the only model that we typically use is one of these more standard models like 4.1 mini or 4.1. They're just a bit more mature now. We know that they work and we know that they're reliable enough for what we're trying to do. Below this, we've actually got a backup LLM as well. So in some cases, these models can go down. It's definitely possible for that to happen. And if that is the case, we can set it up to do a backup model. So we can set up, you can see up to 4 different models right here. If Claude goes down, we'll use GPT-5. If that goes down, we'll use Gemini, etc. So pretty awesome that we can do that. A good redundancy measure. Not a lot of platforms actually have this. So this is pretty cool. Scrolling down a bit further, we've got the temperature. So the temperature is essentially the randomness or the creativity of the response, as you can see here. Pretty much if we bump that temperature all the way up, it's going to be as creative as possible. It is going to reason through your response as much as possible. It's going to try and come up with the best answer possible, although this can cause potential artifacts or it might hallucinate. It's more likely to hallucinate because it's trying to dig as far as it can to answer your question. And so on the temperature, we can scroll this all the way up to 1, and that's going to be the most creative. It's going to try to give you the best answer. Usually it's not going to be the best at 1 because it's going to be quite deep into trying to understand your question. But if we set it all the way to 0, you can see here it's going to be more deterministic, where we're going to get more predictable responses. If we give it a question and then we give it the same question, we're more likely to get the same response every single time. Usually for us as an agency, for a voice agent specifically, we do like to keep it quite deterministic. We do want to make sure that what the agent is saying, we can account for, and we can more accurately predict what it's going to say next, especially if it's a more important use case. If it is in a certain industry, we do want to make sure that we aren't saying anything that we shouldn't be. Scrolling down a bit further, we've got the agent knowledge base as well. So this is where we can upload documents. Pretty standard if you built any type of agent before. It's just a simple RAG system. So we're going to be uploading some documents. It's going to be able to reference the information from those documents. If somebody has a question that's sort of outside of the existing system prompt, it's going to reference information from those documents. Then at the bottom, we've got these tools right here. So we have end conversation. We can just simply turn them on and it's going to have access to call these tools. Ultimately, end conversation, it just ends the call. Super simple. If we enable it, we can essentially prompt our agent now to be able to do so. And so we could say at the end of the conversation, when the user has said thank you and it seems like it's time to wrap up, please end the call. And so now our agent has access to do that. We've got the text language. So once again, if we wanted to swap that language mid-conversation, we can give it the ability to do so. We can obviously toggle it off if we didn't want to have that happen. Skip turn as well, which is a pretty cool feature of ElevenLabs. If we wanted to, let's say that we wanted the user or we needed the user to take a little bit more time to give us a question or give us an answer to a question, we can have our own agent essentially just pause. And this will just wait for the user to come back to us. The agent will just pretty much just wait until it comes back and give them more time to respond. Then below this, we've got transfer to agent. For voice agents and AI agents that become more complex, it can become beneficial to split a system prompt into multiple system prompts and essentially create individual agents for individual tasks. For example, if we're building out an AI receptionist that has to handle sales inquiries and has a whole flow associated with that, that might be best to sit with one agent. And then our technical inquiries and maintenance inquiries and whatever can all be in a secondary agent. And then our third agent might be to do with more general inquiries. And so now we're just splitting up that workload between 3 different agents that are all going to be independently trained to specifically handle that type of inquiry. And so that is exactly what that tool function there is exactly for. And then we have transfer to number. So this is going to be transferring the call to a human as a fallback method for typical receptionist systems that we build in our agency. If somebody calls in and has an emergency, in some cases, we will recommend just doing a direct transfer. If somebody requests to speak with someone specifically, we can offer to do the transfer. We do try to make it so that the agent obviously tries its best to handle that inquiry without having to do the transfer. But in some cases, having it as a fallback method is going to be the smartest choice. So these are some of the key tools we have access to, and these are all sort of created by default by ElevenLabs. Now, for one of the most powerful things that we can do with these agents is plug in our own custom tools. So we can see here, custom tools, I can hit add tool, and this is going to allow us to add in or connect into a webhook. And this webhook could be in the form of an NNN automation, another NNN AI agent, a make.com flow, a Zapier flow, or a direct sort of integration with your CRM or calendar. And this is really where the power comes from. This allows us to start to send information to create contacts in HubSpot, for example. If we want to create contacts to any type of CRM, we want to book appointments, this is what the tools are going to be used for. And so a tool is just a very basic API request. We can do a post request to send some information or a get request to get information back. And this can all happen live on the call. So there we have it for the default ElevenLabs sort of workspace settings here. So you should have a good understanding as to what we have control over in terms of creating these agents. Now, the next thing that I want to go through is the ElevenLabs workflows, which is a brand new feature that they've announced, which allows us to start to connect multiple different agents together and have conditions between them. So we're not just transferring to a different agent based on somebody wanting to speak to a different agent. but we're starting to build some more conditional steps that determines when we should or shouldn't. So as you can see here, we've got this sort of visual no code canvas right here where we can sort of drag and move. You'll see a start node at the top here that is added by default. We can hit this plus button and you'll see a new sub agent. So we now got access to sub agents. Sub agents are going to be working within our main agent. So we can call upon these sub agents to handle different types of inquiries. Like I mentioned earlier, technical inquiries, sales inquiries. If you want to have a dedicated agent for it, this is where we can do it. So on the right-hand side, you're going to see a lot of the same settings that we saw before with our prompt engineering and adding tools and a knowledge base. All of this is going to be the same. We've got access to the LLM as well as the voice now as well. I can run through the voice settings in just a second, but we get access to individual voices for individual sub agents. So very simply, the way that it works is that obviously the start of the conversation will start at the start node, and then it will go directly into this sub agent initially. And what we can do is conditionally determine if we ever need to move to a different agent by simply adding a sub agent. So we can click on sub agent. Once we've done this, you'll see that we've got a configure condition that is automatically added this connection to it. And within this configure condition, we can essentially prompt whenever this next sub agent should have to be called. So if a sales inquiry comes through, for example, or a more technical question comes through, what we can do is prompt this condition step to say that if this is a technical inquiry, let's move to the next sub agent, which is going to be dedicated to handling this type of inquiry. And then if somebody had a different inquiry, they wanted to talk to the sales department, what we could do is click on this sub agent right here. We can click the plus button and then click sub agent once again. And you're going to see another condition is now coming through. So now we can obviously set up two different conditions for two different types of requests and have two different agents in this case now handling all the different types of conversations. Now, some of the other options that we have here is doing an agent transfer. So if we don't want this agent or the agent just doesn't happen to be built right here, we can select an agent and it's going to be able to reference another agent literally anywhere on our ElevenLabs account that we can just call to and use within this main workflow here. The next step that we get access to is a phone number transfer. So this is just going to be a direct phone number transfer. This isn't going to be an agent that determines when a transfer shouldn't happen. What we can do is set up a condition to essentially determine if anything happens within our initial agent, we can detect really anything, then a phone number transfer should happen. So this condition set doesn't have to be a large language model either. It can also be an expression. So we can set up a very conditional if-else statement that if a specific sentence is said, a specific phrase is said, a specific name is mentioned, then we can do a transfer, which makes this far more conditional. Then we've got tool functions. So this is going to be your basic sort of just calling upon end-to-end workflows, make.com workflows, booking appointments, all of that stuff. If we don't want to have our agent have to handle that through some sort of prompt engineering and determining what all the values in our API request are going to be, we can set it up to be very conditional, like a string of code, essentially running directly after some sort of condition occurs. And then same goes with the end node. We can obviously set this up to run in the many different conditions as to when we should or shouldn't end a call. So hopefully that all makes sense. This allows us to be a lot more conditional, allows us to talk to many different agents. And this really is going to be, if you are going to be building out more complex AI agents, typically if a system prompt just gets too big or you've hit the max amount of input tokens or it starts to lose context, this is when you would start to use it. Now, to be honest, a lot of the single prompt agents and the AI models themselves are getting much larger in terms of their context windows. So single prompt agents for us as an agency are still doing quite well. And as these models get bigger, it's able to handle more context and retain memory within that context, most importantly. And so I would definitely still recommend try to build it out as a single prompt agent first. And if it really doesn't work, then you can jump to a workflow system like this. So hopefully that all makes sense now. Jumping into the voice, this is one of the really big powers of ElevenLabs being obviously their own native voice platform. At the top here, we've got the option to select through the many different voices that we have on ElevenLabs, of course, and there are going to be thousands of these voices. So they've been in the voice AI game for quite a few years. There's a lot of voices here from a lot of professional voices and just regular people as well. It gives us access to really any voice, any accent, any language you could possibly think of. They literally have on here. I've even got my own voice clone as well. You can clone your voice and they are once again one of the best platforms for cloning your voice. So definitely would recommend using ElevenLabs for your voice model every day of the week. Below this, we've got a multi-voice support. So if you want to actually change the voice mid-conversation, this is something that we can do now as well. Typically, I would recommend it only if you've got multiple different agents. So if you do have that support department agent and the technical support department agent, you can swap their voices just to make it feel like an actual transition. Otherwise, this is not something that we use too much within our agency. Below this, you'll see the text-to-speech model family, and this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. If I click into this, you're going to see a few different models from ElevenLabs. If you are going to be doing a multilingual system, the ElevenLabs multilingual model is what you will want to choose for. Otherwise, there's a turbo and a flash model. We've just been using the turbo model. The flash model, it's quite fast, although it does have quite a few artifacts in the speech. And so if you are going to be building out a voice agent, it's not great if it starts to screech or have these artifacts on the call. We would just recommend using ElevenLabs Turbo. Flash is good if you really want to get the quickest system possible, although we haven't necessarily found that the quickest agent is absolutely necessary, or at least not at the sacrifice of the quality of the speech itself. Scrolling to the bottom of the voice settings here, this is really important when it comes to getting a really good voice, minimizing the amount of artifacts that you have out of that voice, and just making it as human-like as possible. So if you are going to be experimenting and changing the voice and swapping between different accents and voices for your agent, I would definitely recommend playing with these settings. So at the top here, we've got optimize streaming latency. So ultimately, you can see here, latency can be optimized at the cost of quality. Once again, if we want to make it faster, we can, but it is going to reduce that quality of the voice. It's going to produce artifacts. Artifacts could be screeching and just mumbling a lot of words, which isn't necessarily great and kills that realism quite quickly. Once again, we haven't found necessarily getting the quickest agent is the most optimal thing. Just having the clearest speech is most optimal. Below this, we've got a stability setting. This is mostly to do with the emotion of the voice. So if we want a voice that's super emotional, it reads out sentences with as much emotion as it can, and it really expresses itself on the call. This is something that we can increase or decrease. But the downside of increasing it is that we're going to be getting more artifacts. So if we want to make it more expressive and more human-like, it is going to create artifacts, and that could kill the realism overall. But what we can do is reduce this all the way to the bottom with stability. It's going to make the voice quite a bit more monotone. It isn't going to be as expressive, although it's going to be a lot more predictable, and it's going to make it a bit more stable. I wouldn't say that putting it in the middle is necessarily always the best choice to make. It really depends on the voice that you're choosing. So if you choose a voice that is very expressive by default, you may want to decrease this all the way down to 2 or 1. But if you choose a voice that is very monotone by default, you probably want to bump this all the way up to 0.7 so you can really get the most out of it. Then next up, we have the speed. And once again, this really comes down to the voice that you're choosing. If you choose a voice that by default speaks really quickly and it's hard to understand, you probably want to slow it down a bit, and vice versa. If you have a voice that's very slow, you probably want to speed it up a bit. Now for our agency and our business, we've found that increasing the speed does actually help quite a bit. So actually not slowing it down, but speeding it up. Speeding up the voice can actually help to make it sound a little bit more realistic, especially if there are artifacts in the speech. It can help to sort of soften a lot of the artifacts if it sort of just goes over its speech a bit quicker. And if it ever reads something too quickly, the caller on the other end can always just ask it to repeat itself, and it will do that very easily. So they are all of the main settings to do with setting up a voice. And that is also pretty much it in terms of all of the settings in terms of getting one of these agents up and running. So let's come back to the main settings here with the agent. Let's scroll down a bit and let's create a system prompt. So I might tell it that you are a McDonald's order taker. And then I'm going to hit the generate with AI button, and let's see if we're able to generate a sort of McDonald's order taker, receptionist, or a sort of like a drive-through person. I'm going to see if it sounds any good. So here we go. We've got a personality, an environment, a tone, a goal, and some guardrails. So if you aren't familiar with my prompting or building out AI agent prompts at all, this is a pretty good format and structure for getting started, at least as a draft initially. What we've got are headings here that are all done with markdown formatting. You'll see it's got one hashtag, so that means it's a heading 1, and that makes it so that the AI itself, since it is trained on markdown formatting, is going to be viewing this prompt a bit more clearly. So ultimately, we can see here that it is going to be taking some orders here at McDonald's. It's meant to be friendly and polite, and it should know the McDonald's menu inside and out. Its goal is to take orders from the customer, and then it needs to record the customer's order and provide a total cost for them. And because this prompt by default generated this variable right here with the name, it means if I scroll down a little bit, this dynamic variables box has automatically given me the option to add in a name here, and I can type in my own name so that the agent will essentially reference my name. But in the actual production environment, we can use this variable if we're going to be doing outbound calls. We can obviously reference the name of the individual that we know that we're going to be calling, or we can do that with inbound as well if we have their contact beforehand. But otherwise, let's hit save and let's give this agent a go. Hey, can I order 2 Big Macs?
Hi there. My name's Brendan, and I'd be happy to help you with your order. So, you'd like 2 Big Macs, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, 2 Big Macs it is. Would you like anything else with that? Perhaps some fries or a drink to go along with your meal?
Yeah, sure. What do you recommend?
Great choice. I'd highly recommend our world-famous fries. They're perfectly crispy and a classic pairing with the Big Mac. Or if you're looking for something refreshing, our Coca-Cola is always a popular pick. What sounds good to you?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do both of those. Let's do 2 large fries. And you can put some chicken nuggets in there as well.
Excellent choices. So, to confirm, that's 2 Big Macs, 2 large world-famous fries, and a 10-piece chicken McNuggets. Is that all correct?
And the Coke as well.
My apologies, you are absolutely right. So, that's 2 Big Macs, 2 large world-famous fries, a 10-piece chicken McNuggets, and 2 large Coca-Colas. Does that sound perfect now?
Awesome, thank you. How long is that going to take to get delivered?
You're very welcome. For delivery, you can typically expect your order to arrive within 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how busy we are. We'll get it to you as quickly as possible.
So there you go. That was a brief conversation with the McDonald's person right there. We were able to make an order. You can see the conversationalness of that agent. It sounds quite good. It was able to run through exactly what I was looking for. Obviously, this is a very basic prompt. I think we could immediately improve it by quite a lot just based on the conversation that I had there. It seems that the name being used here was the name for the actual McDonald's worker. So not my name, but the name for the worker, which is completely fine. But obviously this demo is just to give you a really good understanding as to what to expect from a system like this in terms of the realism of it, the speed of it, and the entire just setup process. So coming back to the voice, we can obviously change this once again, just to give you a demonstration as to what kind of voices we can expect from this in terms of the realism. Obviously that was one of their default American voices, but we can swap this over to maybe like an Australian voice. We can choose Emily at the bottom here, and we can give this a try as well. Hey, I'm looking to order some McDonald's fries.
Hi there, you've come to the right place. I'm Brendan, and I'd be happy to help you with your McDonald's order. What size fries would you like today? We have small, medium, and large.
Yeah, I'd like to take medium fries with a Big Mac and a drink all in a meal.
Excellent choice. So that's a Big Mac meal with medium fries and a drink. What drink would you like with that today?
What do you recommend? I'll just take that.
I'd be happy to recommend some popular choices. Many customers enjoy a classic Coca-Cola, a refreshing Sprite, or a sweet iced tea with their Big Mac meal. Do any of those sound good to you? Or would you prefer something else?
No, I think that sounds pretty good. Can I get one of every drink?
Just to clarify, you'd like one Coca-Cola, one Sprite, and one iced tea with your Big Mac meal. So that would be a Big Mac meal with medium fries, a Coca-Cola, a Sprite, and an iced tea. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. So there we have it. Once again, obviously that was a bit of a long-winded conversation with that agent right there. And that all comes down to the prompting. So obviously, in order to build these systems, we aren't able to simply just prompt it once and have it working right away. These are systems that have to be built out over several weeks, and testing is a big part of this. One key thing that I would highlight just from that conversation was that it sort of mentioned the types of drinks that I was looking for, although it kind of just repeated it again right after that. So it was a bit of a long-winded conversation, wasn't exactly ideal for the use case of getting a quick order through. What we've built is actually a platform called Reliable. Reliable is a simulation and monitoring platform specifically for AI voice agents. Our goal here was to really build a platform to target the specific issue that I just outlined with it repeating itself. There's obviously a lot of other issues when it comes to building out voice agents and getting them to a production ready status. But Reliable has sort of been built in mind from our agency and our expertise to really understand all of the different areas where failures could occur and give you the best tools possible to be able to handle that. So on the screen now is our platform, and this is a bit of a dashboard here from a simulated call. So what we can do is send AI calls to your AI voice agent. And this is going to give us and you a lot of data as to how well the agent's performing. We can assess everything that's needed to get your agent up and running much better than before. If you are interested in building better agents and building them to a real production ready status, I'll have Reliable linked down below.